Welcome to the 8th grade homework helper series. Tonight's homework is EL8, the slope-intercept form of a linear equation. We'll start by taking a look at 1a, and number 1 asks, in each case find the slope, the y-intercept, and the coordinates of the y-intercept of the line, that is the graph of the equation. So let's review by first going over what exactly is the formula for the slope. So we have y equals mx plus b. The m is the slope in this formula. So any number that represents the m, which basically means it's right next to the x, that's going to be your slope. Now the y-intercept, you might think it's something that's going to be over here, but it's not. It's actually the b. Why do they call it a b? I don't know. So as we look at this formula, we are going to try and figure out which numbers represent the m and the b. As we look over here, we know the m needs to be next to the x, and we don't see anything next to the x, but you may remember if there's nothing next to a variable, it's assumed to be a 1. So our slope in this particular equation is 1. The y-intercept is the number that's all by itself with no equation, in this case 3. The coordinates, we can do 0, -3. For the y is really the only important one because this is the intercept. It's the only spot that won't change. The x variable, that can change. Okay, that coordinate can change, and as it changes it'll create a line, but the y-intercept is the one that's not going to change, so 0 is acceptable for that. Okay, number 1 again. Now we're going to do 1g. So again, we're trying to figure out where m is. We are trying to figure out where b is. Remember, m is the slope, b is the y-intercept. So we have 2x equals 5y minus 10. Now we don't have y isolated by itself as it should be up here, so we're going to have to do some work to achieve that. So let's copy the problem, and then we need to start taking away some of the things over here. So we could remove 10 by adding 10, and if we do that to one side, we have to do it to the other. Now you may realize you can't add 10 to 2 because this has an x and this does not have a variable. So all of that is just going to wind up getting pushed onto this side of the equal sign. We have 10 and we have plus 2x equals 5y. Now we're closer to getting 5y isolated, but we still need to remove the 5 from it. So if we divide by 5, we can cancel that out, but if we do it over there, we have to do it on each side. So following through on that, 10 divided by 5 is going to give you 2. The 2x5 stays, and we've isolated the y. So now we actually have an equation that we can check for slope and y-intercept. So remember, slope is the m right next to the x. In this case, we have 2/5. So that's going to be our slope. The y-intercept is the number isolated without any variable. In this case, it's a 2. The coordinates, again, x could be any number, so we'll use 0, but the 2 has to stay for y because that's the only spot that it intersects. Okay, let's look at number 2. It says, in each case, write the equation of the line whose slope and y-intercept are respectively. We have a -1. And we have a -3. Now respectively means that the order in which they were listed here is the order we have to assume they're listed here. So don't be fooled by that. So our first number has to be the slope because the slope was listed first. Our second number has to be the y-intercept because that was listed second. So again, looking at the equation, y equals mx plus b, we simply have to take -1 and plug it in for m, and -3 and plug it in for b, and that would look something like that. Now we have a 1 next to the x, which doesn't necessarily need to be shown, so I think if you left it like this it would be okay, but you could also show it as -x minus 3 and remove the 1 because the 1 is assumed to be there. Number 3, we are going to state in each case whether the lines are parallel and explain why. Now many of these were pretty easy because you're comparing, in this case, y equals 2x and 2y minus 4x equals 9. If you think about it, we need to have the y, this is closest to the actual formula for the slope. The y is isolated by itself equals 2x. So this is fine. We could compare this. But if you look over here, we can't really compare that one. So in order to be able to tell if this slope is equal to this slope, we've got to do some work to isolate y over here. And then we can put it back over and try and compare them. So the first thing we want to do is bring this down. And in our attempt to isolate y, I think it might be smart to first get rid of the 4x. And if we do that on this side, we have to do that on this side. But again, we can't add 9 and 4 because 4 has an x and 9 does not. So really this is just going to shift over to this side. So we have our 2y equals 9 plus 4x. Now we still want to isolate y, so we can divide by 2, and that's going to cancel these guys out. And if we divide by 2 over here, we've got to do it over here. So the y is going to come down to 9 over 2, which is an improper fraction, so that gives us 4.5. And 4 divided by 2 gives us 2, and we keep our x. So we now have y, just like the equation shows, on one side by itself, and we have the rest of the problem over on this side. So I think we can plug this back into the original equation that we had and check to see. So we have y equals 2x and y equals 4.5 plus 2x. So we're focusing on the slopes, and there is one slope, there is another slope, and they're the same. So that indicates that since the slopes are the same, the lines that would be created by those equations would be parallel. Please use the problems that were solved for you tonight to answer the rest of the questions on the homework, and remember, the key to success in math is not only working hard, it's working smart.